Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's the Daily. It's part 2 of daily number 543, where we learn to be a better gamer. In part 1, we essentially set up the idea of starting to figure out better and nicer timings in the Zerg vs. Zerg matchup. For specifically doing this Queen Nydus Swarm Host type of thing. So, the reason we looked at those first two games, I kind of rushed this at the end, so that way we could go to the break and go to part 2, but to slow it down just a little bit more, that second game, we just gave it a shot. The idea is just giving this new style a shot, seeing what all the problems are, and trying to solve it with as few things as possible. It's very easy to look at each thing in a vacuum to be like, alright, I need more defense, let me just get a Baneling nest up. Alright, cool, I need more anti-air in that attack. Alright, let me just get more queens for the attack. Alright, wow, I mean, I need more infestors for the attack too. Maybe infestors would have been helped. Alright, so I need more infestors. And then you would get to this bad spot where you need more of everything. You need more infestors and queens and banelings and everything. And that's not what you want to do. What we saw in last game is we had a number of problems. Seemed a little thin on the defense at the start. We needed more drones. We didn't have a big enough attack. We were low on anti-air. All this can really be solved by doing two minor adjustments in my eyes that we're going to see CatZ do right now. Adding on more queens at the start and doing more consistent queen production, and just slowing all the tech down. Not trying to tech up too quickly, which we ended up doing in that very first attempt game. So here we have CatZ. This is the game we actually began the daily with. So CatZ starts off fairly normally. We don't need to watch the ultra early segments, but as we slow it down, this is where we can start to see how a lot of important decisions are being made in this early phase. So this hatch goes down right at the start. And if you are trying to practice this build, or trying to practice any build where you're working away, this would maybe be game 10 to 20 of you just hammering away at the same idea. There's plenty of games that are needed for refinement, and don't get discouraged if you're losing in the first couple of them. So right away we see CatZ sending these overlords in these positions primarily to be able to spot any sort of incoming 6-pool. I mean, just look at this mini-map path. The overlord heads here before it heads across through the middle. This is all just preemptive defensive stuff from CatZ. Upon not seeing any sort of attack coming, great. CatZ just builds himself his early queens, and look, just stays very firmly planted back along these attack routes while sending more overlords to the front line. 2 Zerglings head on out. Other than that, it's all droning. All just straight droning, and when these queens get finished, 2 more queens pop up right away. Do I have the sound on? Oh, thank God. I was like freaking out, man. So cool, even getting this spine crawler up. Why? Because we don't have any gas yet, so getting Zerglings up for extra defense is not going to be particularly strong if he goes Zerglings. And again, we don't have any gas, so Banelings aren't going to be the strongest defense. If we wanted to add more defense, adding on another spine is a fine choice. This is also a very typical time to add on a spine crawler if you see nothing. Why? Because if he's hiding lings back home, actually, I'll just come right to here. This is just sort of like the standard timing. This overlord has seen that there is a hatch that has finished. Right around 4:30 is generally when players will be getting speed if they have a fast speed, and as a result, that's when they will also be able to start building a Baneling nest. So around 5:30 to 6 is when the real crazy Ling Banelingness happens. So if 5:30 to 6 minutes is when real scary Ling Baneling stuff starts, then I should probably start my spine crawler, which takes about a minute to build. I should probably start that right around 5. So we're going into the defense a little bit more in depth. It doesn't matter if you went pool first or whether you're opening 10 pool or something like that. This is just a sort of normal thing to note. So we see CatZ also gets the chance to poke around here and see exactly what's up. Still could be some Zerglings hiding around in there, but Baneling Nest at the front is very typical. And in the meantime, CatZ just goes straight for his lair. Or, excuse me, he will in a moment. Come on, CatZ. Come on. Actually, not having any excess gas at all. Just getting it as soon as he can afford it. Come on. Build it, damn it. There we go. And in the meantime, just churning out queens one at a time from this remaining guy. Making sure to poke around, has still seen absolutely no aggression. But thus far has gotten all the defensive preparations up to be able to deal with some sort of craziness that's hurled at him at the start. Obviously pushing everything away, continuing to build queens. When the layer ends up finishing, this is where I want to do another, oops, I stopped 5 seconds too late. Is at this point I want to do another little note check type thing. We see that CatZ is doing a little bit of this stuff. Why at this point? Well, 6 minutes is generally when a lot of Zerg players would start going nuts with Ling Baneling. So he pokes in here just to make sure that there's a layer going up, to make sure that there's not some sort of maybe 2-base hidden roach attack, which is probably the next line of really truly scary offenses that our opponent could throw at us. But now we're starting to approach the 7:30 mark. We haven't seen any roaches. He could be going for some type of layer tech. Like the Spire or the Infestation Pit himself. A lot is going to depend on this extra base. This is generally a sign of a player who is either going Mutalisks. This is just a very common time to go Mutalist, just a little bit before 8. Or a player who's intending on being super duper defensive. So it's defense or Mutalisks coming at our face. No matter what, building queens is solving a lot of these problems right away. And now we have CatZ just doing a pretty standard alignment, getting the Infestation Pit first, and then getting the Nydus network right when this is getting close to finished. We can start to see how all these pieces are actually working together quite nicely. Now, when I first showed this in part 1, I was doing a lot of the, ooh, isn't this awesome to see? Isn't that totally kick-ass? Is this not beautiful? And this sort of thing. But now we can actually talk a little bit more precisely about the mechanics of the stuff we're seeing. This, I want to come back to. The exact timing of this, actually no, I want to talk about this right now. If we're abandoning our base, sure we can pop back with the Nydus network, but having a couple spines back for defense seems very reasonable. I would have started this, or upon seeing this game, now we can say, wow, we should start these spines closer to 9 minutes or so, instead of starting them at the end of that period. Rather than at 9:30, start them at 9, so that way as we're leaving, these are finishing up. And we can clearly see why this is an effective timing, because it hits right at 10 minutes, which is right at the moment that any Mutalisking player would want to be getting very aggressive with us. And of course it puts him in a tough decision. Does he attack or does he counterattack? And it looks like in this circumstance Painkiller decided to counter. Or if he was going defensive, if our opponent wanted to do some sort of defensive play, rather than building the Nydus network here, we would build the Nydus network more like here. And we could just start chipping away at a defensive player who is relying more on roaches or on infestors. And then, of course, we all saw this really unbelievably kick-ass defense. Being able to pull all this jazz off. That's fairly intuitive. Can I ask a stupid question? This is something... Does the Spore Crawler not require an evolution chamber anymore? I want to poll the crowd. I genuinely didn't know this. I've been seeing this in multiple dailies in a row, and I haven't said anything, but I really want to get to the bottom of this. Wow, where's the Zerg tech tree? I mean, because the problem is, look at that. Look at this, man. You see that? This is what's throwing me off, man. It's what's fooling Mr. 9. But of course, if he's continuing to be aggressive, we can take any opportunity that we want. This is the most interesting to me. Because if we have a Nydus network here, forcing all his units here, we can easily plop the Nydus worm there, and then load up back here, and instantly begin the assault into his main. And then we've all seen the end of this game wrap up. So great. Cool. We now have what I call a refined tactic. A refined basic strategy. Now I'm going to close the replay. Marth, let me know if it messes up. Alright. Everything should be fine now. I should have sound now. That was an excellent little freeze. The blip happened on my end too. It terrified me. Because sometimes my computer even goes, eeeh. Alright, we're now doing the crackle test. To try to remove said crackling. This is one of the wonderful things that now occurs. How am I doing, Marth? Masa. And now we're going to do another test. Okay, great. Great. Let's go ahead and hop into the next game. We did that because now we have a refined basic strategy structure. Crap. Alright, Marth, let me know if this test is working. What about now? Apologies to you archive viewers. Just skip ahead. Alright. And we're doing another test. There's a weird thing that happens, for any of you who are interested. If you're in your archives, just skip ahead. But if you're live, closing things in Heart of the Swarm, just for some reason, exiting out of the replay is very taxing on the computer. I'm hoping that gets removed. And it messes with the encoder. The encoder's like, oh my god. But let us try that again. Now we have a refined basic strategy. And it's time to do further analysis of it and see two things. One is everything going up to our strategy, or everything leading up to our Nydus, Swarm Host, all that stuff. Is that stuff good? Is that stuff clean? Can we do it any better? Can we optimize it? So that's the one optimization half that we have to think about. And the other one is how to work out of this. What are the follow-ups with this? What does it entail in terms of our expanding patterns? Because just two-basing it is not going to be a possibility for the ultra long term. So we want to look at a game like this. This is a really interesting game. There's some comicalness to it, but it's a really interesting look at how important it is to just say, is everything going good up to this point? Where I'm doing my ball and Nydus network stuff, and how do I improve everything that happens after that? Sort of before and after. I'm going to go to the ROOTCatZ cam yet again, because this is actually going to look somewhat weird for the average bear, and I don't want to actually reveal any of what Carnage is doing, so I'll be doing that. So look at this. CatZ goes for a pool first. Nothing wrong with going for pool first. You can absolutely do that sort of thing. Certainly just going to be going for the queen follow-up, getting maybe a pair of lings out. Maybe none, because we have seen nothing in this region. The Overlord gets in here. He sees gas. This is almost always a signal for aggression. Again, around 6 minutes is when the 2-base aggression is really going to be kicking into high gear. So what are we seeing CatZ do? He's just going drones and queens. Now, why would he go drones and queens here? Why would any player go for drones and queens if they see aggression coming? The answer is so simple. The answer is because that is what we've been doing. Don't change what you're doing if it works. You change it if it doesn't work. If for some reason CatZ goes for queens and drones and dies really badly, that is when an adjustment happens. For some reason, there's this habit that many folks have when they're like, okay, I've seen many games, I've even heard on the daily gas indicates aggression, so if that's the case, I'm going to go super nuts with the defense. Don't do huge deviations. You want to do as few deviations from what you know works as possible. When were we building that spine crawler beforehand? We were building it around 5 minutes, because the aggression kicks into full gear around 6. So we have the queens continuing to pop out. Ah, okay. So now I can say that maybe this was a little late. Maybe I should have had that up closer to 5 minutes. Again, we're all basing this in terms of the context of what we've seen before. Indeed, we're seeing that the Baneling Nest is going to be getting close to finishing up at around 6 minutes. That's when really the stuff tends to kick into high gear. So everything from CatZ's point of view seems good, right? Getting all the geysers up, going for the mass drones, continuing to do that good old spotting type thingies. And then he sees, oh my gosh, Zerglings. Huge flood of lings begin kicking into gear. And now is when CatZ is going to be doing his reasoned response. So this is where, in a sense, this is like a mock debate. This is like the taking a test SAT. You've said, alright, I know that my fast layer, really sweet Nydus network play, I know it's good, and I think that this can hold off any attack he throws at me. And now finally I'm having this sort of attack thrown at me. Let's see how it does. Everything else has been pretty intuitive, as far as I'm concerned. And then this happens. That is a total of 16 drones! Yeah! Now, we have more Zerglings coming in. We prevent more Zerglings from coming in. Most people... This is where I'm actually going to remove all of this sort of stuff. This is the importance of going back and looking at a replay. That was a fairly committed attack by the enemy Carnage. Did it result in CatZ being ahead or behind? It was painful to watch for me. If you're playing there in that spot, it's painful to have it happen to you. You're just like, oh, Jesus, I can't believe I let those Banelings get in. Oh, God. However, how it feels has nothing to do with whether we are in a good or bad position. In the unit station, CatZ is ahead on drones. He has mined more gas. He has mined more gas. His tech is ahead. He has more defenses, more queens. Carnage is only just now starting his lair. Yeah, in fact, CatZ is in objectively better condition than the opponent. It's very easy to say that CatZ lost way too much, or everything's going really poorly for him. But in this situation, clearly, he's actually doing fine. Keeping up with drones. Just needs to make sure he doesn't continue to lose drones. So, I would say not an ideal defense. Not the most beautiful defense ever. Could be worked on. But that's an amazing reassurance. This is what's so interesting about trying a new strategy and then looking again and analyzing. Even with this sort of complete, total battering to death, you're not in bad shape. You're in pretty good shape. I'm actually going to be a little bit more worried about Zerglings than about Banelings in a spot like this. Banelings continue to march themselves in, and in fact, after yet another attack attempt, we see that CatZ actually winds up doing quite well. Carnage has lost overall more stuff. And look at us. We're already way down the line with our infestation pit strategy. And etc. Yeah. So this actually looks a lot better. It's so funny. I'm still seeing people note in the chat like, "Wow, God, man, I can't believe CatZ is still in this." And again, you just look up, you just clear your mind of what happened and step in and just look at what is there. And in fact, there's some games. Totally lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? I don't remember. I literally can't remember what I was talking about. Oh well. Either way, the more aggressive our opponent is, the more effective this infestation pit, and more importantly the Nydus network, is going to wind up being. Because he has fewer ways to deal with this mixture of stuff. Like, if he's suddenly having to abandon building units and catch up in the drone count and try to stay competitive with CatZ's economy, then yeah, we're just going to run him over. I like this idea of attempting to do these sorts of infestation pit type thingies. These burrowed infester plays. And now CatZ has once again a big scary army to go drill at the enemy. This game is useful for me to see because it brings into question what's the best place to do Nydus networking. Obviously, this seems intuitively excellent. I would love to do something like this. However, I think that this is not nearly as safe a spot as this would be, given that we know our opponent went for a big failed attack early. In the game that we just finished watching, CatZ had identified that his opponent was going for a fast layer, and then we saw the fast third base, so we know that the opponent is going tech crazy and is going to have trouble with these multiple prongs of attack, but literally, this is as clear an example as it gets. When the Mutalisks from Carnage finish and rally to CatZ main, that's where they're going to fly over. This is one of these things that's kind of like annoying and makes you be like, oh my god. And look, here comes Carnage. He's just killing off Overlords, just doing routine Overlord slaughtering. Kills them off, the Mutalisks hook up, that gets killed off. Trying again. And then another Mutalisk rally point spots it, and it gets killed off again. I mean, this is like a series of incredible luck-based moments where, while all this is going on, there's a twofold series of questions that are popping into the head. One, of course, is, geez, where really should I plant this Nydus network? Because as lucky as Carnage was, you want to avoid situations where any luck happens. You want to put your Nydus network in a location where he really cannot do anything. So, that's again why I'm talking a little bit like this. There's less opportunity for something to mysteriously waltz right on past. Or hell, you can even do something like plant it here, which is nearly equivalent if you plant it up there, but just gives you a little bit more time. Anything like that. But the second, I think, more important question is, now that that Nydus network thing has been thwarted, what do we do? Oh my god, that's not the question. Now that that Nydus network thing has been thwarted, what did we do? Did we accomplish anything? We could have gone in there and killed him, but we didn't. It's almost like that attack that you see every pro make where he does the attack and it failed, but oh my god, he has the expand behind it. You can say, oh, I know what that attack did. That secured himself a third base. I think a third base, doing something expand-wise, doing something extra macro hatch-wise, upgrade-wise, all these are considerations. So in other words, if this ends up failing, what did we gain? We can march down with the Queens and Swarm Hosts and Infestors and go ahead and take this expansion. If we cannot get the Nydus network up, then we get an expansion. If this expansion does get started, and we do succeed in getting a Nydus worm up, heck, he might be tempted to go try to do some counterattacks up there to try to deal some damage to it, but we can easily use our Nydus network to bounce around, or we can easily just say, yeah, that's fine, I'll base trade. I'll lose my third base that's 80% done, and you'll lose your main base. This is kind of what I'm talking about with the adjustment before and afterwards. That the original goal that we've been talking about leading up to this is getting this base structure done. So great! CatZ now has the base structure done. And like any reasoned human, he's just trying to continue to make sure his strategy can hop off the ground and that something can go on that doesn't make this entirely wasted. But in terms of strengthening it, accentuating its skillfulness, this is great. The burrow stuff is great to sort of circumvent the map control that Carnage no doubt has. We can easily begin just like Nydus network right there. And indeed. And now CatZ can move down here and do these multi-pronged attacks. So with our minerals, we can actually go drones and defensive structures and expanding. And even with Carnage having killed off so much stuff, we start to see the real efficiency of this jazz. Where are these? There they are. He's looking for those extra burrow dudes, and we can see, okay, cool. Now that we're actually engaging in a straight full-on attack, we're getting a little bit more research data. We clearly crush Mutalisks. They cannot hope to engage us profitably. While all this is going on, this prong of an attack could be also going on here. This is probably the better place to expand. We could just go defensive structure, one swarm host, and clear that up. And what I'm noting here, one thing that I do want to emphasize before we go on to part 3, is that I'm not trying to criticize CatZ and go, oh, well, he should have done that there. He should have done this there. He should do that there. I have been in a situation like this a million times. Any player who's played any amount of StarCraft has been in this situation a million times before. When you're in a new game, or excuse me, when you're in a game in a new strategy, naturally, there's a ton more stuff for your brain to keep track of. Jesus, is anyone comfortable with Nydus Network Micro? Like it's kind of a new skill to be like trying to pop around everywhere. When you're in game, it's very easy to just go into autopilot. I do this all the time. I've streamed myself saying this on air, going, all right, I'm just not even going to try to take a third base. I'm just going to go all in on 2 bases. And now when I come back in, that's when you can look at this game and go, aha, here is the situations that I could have adjusted. You do the notes for what to do the next game in between the games. You don't try to do it in the moment. So I'm not trying to go, oh, CatZ, why did you not do that in that moment? It's kind of that like exploration of now, aha, sweet, here. Now we can see pretty clearly from this vantage point where we're not overwhelmed trying to micro a Nydus network or something like that. And sure, this ends up forcing us to retreat. Our queens get a little bit spread out and out, making it time for us to run. Queens never die. And CatZ could have poked in here to do some damage. In fact, I'd probably say that this is the last moment I want to look at right here at around 16 minutes, where this huge attack's happening up here, and this could have been successful down there. This could have been a Nydus network maybe here or here. We're seeing that, in fact, in our analysis of what can go on from the moment we get this Nydus network up to the future, there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of wiggle room to explore. So when we come back in part 3, we're going to see another game that's similar to this one, where we can ask ourselves, what are more strengths and weaknesses of this strategy? How are we going to adjust it over time? So I'll see you in a bit. Yeah!